Christmas story, it highlights a very real truth, and you heard it in one of those passages just now. God does not let you leave the same way that you came in. God does not let you leave the same way that you came in. And we see this in a variety of areas in that Christmas story. Mary and Joseph, they were on that huge roller coaster of change in their lives. Any plans they may have had regarding their future kind of went out the window when the angels visited them both. And if this was Nazareth 2,000 years ago, it's probably about now that they would be setting out on their journey to Bethlehem. And I really hope they did take the donkey, because it just needs a donkey. So there we go. They would have travelled those 80 or so miles to Bethlehem. It would have been difficult. They probably didn't go on their own. They probably went with a group of other people to this place. But it would have been difficult because of Mary's pregnancy. So there would have been an awful lot of consternation on that journey. But by the end of the Christmas story, everything had changed for them. Mary and Joseph had become parents. They would have met those shepherds who would have enthusiastically told them all that they had heard in the fields. And then they would have met at some point those magi, the wise men, those strangers from the east, who had studied the stars, who had seen a new star, and they recognized that new star as a sign that there was a new king that had been born. And they had traveled that long distance to worship, to find out all about this new king and worship him. And meanwhile, Mary and Joseph would have looked at their newborn child, and they would have seen in his face the face of God. And Mary, as we read in Luke's gospel, she pondered all these things. She treasured all these things in her heart and in her mind, and she was thinking, things have changed. Things have changed. And then there's those shepherds. They left the Holy Family completely changed. For the first time, they were probably feeling valued. They wanted to proclaim the good news. Before they saw the holy baby in the manger, before the decision to go to Bethlehem, before the angels had arrived in the fields, they were like outcasts. They were on their own. They pretty much lived on the edge of society, literally and figuratively. They were good for staying out into the fields on the cold nights, in all weathers. They were good for tending other people's sheep, good for scaring off the wild animals. They were no doubt a bit dirty and a bit smelly and a bit rough. But God had chose them to be the first people to see his son. And they were changed because of it. We read that they were excited by what they saw. They glorified God. And anyone who they came across in their path, they told them all about what they had seen and what had happened to them. And they absolutely amazed everyone. They were no longer on the outside. They were now part of something truly amazing and stunning. They were the first, chosen by God to spread the good news. The Saviour, the Son of God, had come. And then there's the Magi, the wise men. They were very much that literal definition of going home by a different route, going home in a different way that they came in. They had to avoid Herod's palace for fear of what Herod would do once he found out where Jesus was living. So the Magi went completely out of Judea from a different route. But like the shepherds, Mary and Joseph, they also left changed. They were going home, having met Jesus, the Son of God, and everything was now different. And when the light from that star that led them to the place where Jesus, his mother, and his father were staying, they had one simple response. They worshipped the child. And like the parents, like the shepherds, earlier they had seen the face of God, the face of love in that child's face. And they could do nothing more but worship him and give them their gifts. One wonders what gifts that we could bring to him if we were also present on that night along with the Magi. What would we do? Well, that well-known carol answers that question. one gift that Jesus wants from all of us is our hearts. Just our hearts. So what about us? Has the story of Jesus' birth touched our hearts this evening? Has a line from an oft-heard carol suddenly jumped towards us again, as though we've only heard it for the first time ever this evening? Has something spoken to us in the candlelight of this service? Maybe there's something that we are struggling with right now. Well, if you are, then there's this beautiful, gentle phrase that might help. It says, cooperate with grace. Cooperate with grace. The God of peace, the God of love, is the God of grace. And he wants to change our hearts, be with each one of us in our hearts. And it's only if you're willing to accept that, to do our part, to cooperate with grace. And like the shepherds, like the Magi, like Mary and Joseph, on seeing Jesus, they were all changed. They could not stay the same. They all cooperated with grace. And God could not let them leave the same way that they came in. So perhaps today, when figuratively we go home this evening, perhaps by another route, when we allow God to let us leave in a different way than we came in, when we cooperate with grace. Thank you.